And so I now welcome Sheriff Wayne Ivey.
Thank you. I'm going to try and go without it.
I don't need that.
Yeah, I don't. I got a big mouth. So.
He's going to try to talk without this.
Yeah, everybody can usually hear me. I got a big mouth, so I'll just, I'll try and talk real loud. First of all, I'm going to start out. Let me ask this. How many of you, if you had to go vote right now, would vote yes for Amendment 2 on the medical marijuana issue? Anybody? It's the medical marijuana issue, all right? So nobody would go vote for it. So my job's done. Can we? Here's where I've taken a stance on this. I'm one of 63 sheriffs in the state of Florida that are asking you to do one thing. Go familiarize yourself with Amendment 2. Go become completely familiar with it. I would never be so bold as to try and tell you how to vote. In fact, I get to serve as your sheriff because you tell me how you want to vote. That's how it works in our political science major, if you will. But I want you to go read this amendment because I'm frightened of it. I will tell you right now that it is absolutely frightening. It's being sold as a can of goods to help people that are in need of medical marijuana. That's what it's being sold as. What it actually is a catalyst, a launching pad for legalizing marijuana in our community. That's exactly what it is. And you can see history will repeat itself. You can see what's happened in Colorado. You can see what's happened in California. The same process took place from it. What frightens me is that the need to help people, every one of us wants to do that. If we have the opportunity to help someone that's suffering, that's in pain, we would all jump at that opportunity to do it. But we can't jump off of a cliff to do it. We have to make sure that we're doing it the right way. I just yesterday lost one of our members, Dan Thrush. We called him Motor 3. He's been a member of our motor unit forever. Dan passed away yesterday morning from a long battle with cancer. I'd have done anything to help Dan. But if Dan was sitting here right now, Dan would tell you, don't do this. This is not the direction we need to go. We have to look at some of the things that are happening and what's gone on. And recently, and some of you may be familiar with it, on one side, there's the push for Amendment 2 that you go vote for in November. On the other side, it went through the legislative process of Charlotte's Web, which is a form of medical marijuana that helps in all different capacities, but primarily with epileptic seizures and things of that nature. It went through the legislative route. It went through and had our legislators look at it from every end, every aspect, put control measures in place, put fundamentals on it that make sure it's being used and steered in the right direction. I will tell you, as your sheriff, I would have stood on the steps of the Capitol and asked our governor to sign that bill. He did sign it, but I'd have stood there and asked him to do it in front of everybody because we did it the right way. This amendment's not being done the right way. This amendment was written. How many of you know who wrote Amendment 2? Anybody? John Morgan. John Morgan of Morgan, Morgan, and Morgan. All right? I got to be honest with you. I don't personally have anything against Mr. Morgan, but I'd rather he keep practicing law and not practice making law. That's what I'd rather. Because this amendment leaves us wide open for damage. This amendment, when we start looking at it, has no control measures in it. It has the ability for anyone, regardless of age, to walk into a doctor's shop. You notice I don't say a doctor's office. I say a doctor's shop because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be in a strip mall. You're going to walk in and you're going to say, you know what, I can't sleep. And they're going to give you a recommendation. And it's not a prescription. It's a recommendation for medical marijuana. Then you're going to go next door to the medical marijuana dispensary, and they're going to say, do you have your recommendation? I sure do. And then they're going to put these Tupperware containers in front of you, and you pick out what you want out of the marijuana dispensary. So maybe you like Orange Crush marijuana. I'll go with that. Maybe you like strawberry flavored. You're going to go with that. Whatever it is, you're going to pick it out and you're going to buy buds. There's no limit on it because the doctor's recommended it. And so when you start looking at it, all it is an open door to get to the next step. That's what they want to do. And when I look at it and the dangers that it creates for us, the hazards that it puts on top of us, I asked Lindsay to look up for me a minute ago, how many McDonald's restaurants do we have in Brevard County? All right, we have 30. And that's enough to solve all the cravings for people for McDonald's. All right? But imagine how many medical marijuana dispensaries you're going to have. In the state of Colorado, over 500 medical marijuana dispensaries. The majority of them are in Denver, where it first started at. Imagine what your society, what our community will look like when we have medical marijuana dispensaries and people standing in the park smoking medical marijuana. Imagine the unintended consequences of it. The consequences that they're telling are we can help those in need. And as I said, I would love to be able to help those in need, but I want to do it the right way. When you look at the unintended consequences, imagine how many times I'm going to be sued. I will tell you, I get sued almost every day, all right? Now, I'm not doing anything wrong, trust me, but people like to sue the sheriff. That's just the way it works, all right? And a lot of times I get sued by people that work for me more than I do the inmates, but that's a different story. But I get sued every day. But imagine how many times I'm going to get sued when someone sitting in my jail that's sitting there on charges says, my doctor recommended I smoke medical marijuana. And I say, I don't care. You're not smoking marijuana in our jail. Imagine the times that I'm going to get sued when somebody says, I want to be a deputy sheriff and I smoke medical marijuana. You don't want to be a deputy sheriff here, because not doing that, we're held to a higher standard than that. All right? So imagine the lawsuits. Look at it from another thing. Our canines, every canine that is in operation in the state of Florida, if this amendment passes, is no longer useful to us for search of vehicles or search of houses, because they've all been trained to scent on marijuana. And so it would defeat the scent search of the car. It'll shut it down. So every dog would have to be, and you can't go back and train the dog not to search for it, so you'd have to recycle every dog through. Look at our education. How would you like to have the people out here launching rockets, smoking medical marijuana on their break? We want that? That's what we're facing. And as I said, I would never be so bold as to say, go vote against this. What I want you to do is go read this amendment. Look how few control measures are in it. Look at the fact that a 13-year-old can walk in and get a recommendation and never have to tell his parents. Look at the fact that a caregiver, the amendment calls for a caregiver to be anyone over the age of 21 years old. 21 years old, regardless of criminal background. And that person can then go in and administer it and have possession of it as a caregiver. So we're looking at some pretty steep obstacles from it. Yes?
Sheriff Ivey, I'm Maggie Daly, a hospital pharmacist at Kendrick Hospital. You know we already have medical marijuana. It's called dronabinol. It's the brand name. The marijuana plant has 40 or 50 cannabinoids. And the FDA decided 30 years ago which one was the effective one for cancer patients. We have it. We dispense it as a C2, controlled substance 2, which means the same as Percocet. You can get it once. So there is no reason to have
That's right.
the plant.
And Morgan is lying.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you, and thank you. I usually don't get into that because I don't understand all that. But you're dead on point. We have the ability to help those that are in that capacity. Now, I haven't had a chance to see it, but just yesterday I got a line on a video that's supposed to show Mr. Morgan in a very profound way, as I would say, showing off pretty bad. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I encourage you. I'm going to try and watch it today. But you're exactly on point. We have an opportunity. And, you know, and this is the other thing I would say in this regard. If this is the direction our society wants to go in, if we have deemed that medical marijuana is the direction we want to go in, let's legislate it. Let's let our legislators, the ones that we pick and choose and send to Tallahassee, let's let them create the control measures that we need in place. Let's let them put the fundamental boundaries on this and do it the right way, just like we just did with Charlotte's Web. All right? That's the direction I would like to see this go. So I know you had your hand up.
I was just walking around Sarno right across from our courthouse the other day at that movie. And right next door is something ready, I think, to sell marijuana. Because it's all set there, the pharmacy's written on the wall and everything, and I think that building is just waiting.
They're lining up. They've already been in front of the county commission looking for permission to do it. It is lining up. And, you know, I will tell you that there's no medical association out there that supports legalizing medical marijuana. Not one. Well, I take that back. There is one. The American Medical Marijuana Association endorses this. All right? And I think some of the hamburger chains are pretty excited about it as well. So after you get it, you can go eat. I'm not positive. So sounds good.
How are you going to handle the DUI?
You know, how are you going to handle the DUI? Creates a whole new. You know, we deal with DUI from all forms of intoxication, whether it's marijuana or any type of drug overdose or anything. We handle it. You're going to see an influx of it.
If they have a prescription for it, then
Still doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. I mean, alcohol is legal. So, but if you're intoxicated on it, it takes it.
measure their impairment.
You do it through a faculty's test, the ability for them to do it. You do it through blood at the lab. It does, but another thing you're going to see on the driving side of it is like what they're experiencing in Colorado right now. The actual number of traffic fatalities has decreased in Colorado over the last, I think, 5 or 6 years. However, the number of traffic fatalities involving marijuana have increased by 114%. So, you know, we're seeing good numbers, and then we're seeing this just unbelievable hit of bad numbers. We are seeing, you're seeing organizations that the banks won't accept their money, all right, because marijuana is still a federal crime, regardless if the state passes it or not. So the banks are saying, we're not touching your money from selling that, so you're on your own. So now what they're doing is they're having armored trucks pull up in front of the dispensaries every day and offload the money and take it to their houses, and then they're seeing home invasions and everything else as a result of it. Colorado and California are experiencing increases in their crime rate where everyone else in the country is experiencing decreases in their crime rate. All right? Now, apparently, I'm just going to say this, apparently it is good for professional football players, because in the Super Bowl you had Denver and Seattle, both of which have it. So, I mean, it might be a performance enhancing, I'm not sure. But I will tell you, it is frightening for us. It is one of those things that we're being told we can help those in need, and it is being sold as a bag of goods. That's what it is. Yes, I'll come to you. The THC is a lot stronger. Her question was, isn't it much stronger? The THC content is a lot stronger. It's being grown in controlled labs and everything else. Right along that line, I will tell you that in the past year, we bought 80 pounds of medical marijuana from Denver. Had a person go from here and say, I can go pick it up, went up, actually picked up 80 pounds of medical marijuana and was headed back when some friends of ours from Colorado took them off for us. They ended up going to jail. We intercepted 100 pounds of medical marijuana right down here in Palm Bay that came from California, and we were able to track it right back to the medical marijuana dispensary that shipped it. So the control measures are not in place. And what I will also tell you is that even Denver and California have stronger control measures than what our amendment does. And what they're saying, and please don't be caught by this, what they're actually saying is, well, once the amendment passes, then the legislation can go in and create parameters. No, they can't. That amendment will stand on its face value once it's voted in. So, yes.
Yeah, would you go into detail about what you're saying with the prescription? In other words, who can write the prescription at the dispensary?
Sure. Her question was, will I go into a little bit of detail about the prescription and who can write it and such? First of all, it's not a prescription. All right, it's going to be a recommendation. You're not going to take it to CVS or Walgreens and have it filled. You're going to take it to the medical marijuana dispensary, and they're going to accept the recommendation. It has no controls on it. It doesn't say you get 10 joints. It says you're recommended to smoke medical marijuana to help with your condition. And let me back up for just a second before I say who can do it. The conditions. The amendment lists out, I think, 4 or 5 different conditions that it can be recommended for. Glaucoma, cancer, some others, Lou Gehrig's disease. And then it has this in it, and this is what frightens me. Or any other condition that a physician feels outweighs the hazards of marijuana. Now, first of all, outweighs the hazards of marijuana tells me it's hazardous. That's the first thing that I got to look at. All right. The second thing is when you consider that you can go in there. In fact, YouTube search Todd Ulrich from Channel 9 News did a expose on it. He went out, he got on a plane, flew to California, got in a taxi cab, him and a news crew. They went to a medical marijuana doctor. Of course, they're just all over. He went in, he was kind of, okay, I don't know what to do. He'd researched it, and he didn't have to know what to do, because when he walked in, they told him what to do, because on the wall was written, the doctor will only recommend medical marijuana for the following conditions. Okay, well, I'll pick one from those. So he picks, I can't sleep, tells the doctor, I can't sleep, and the doctor says, don't worry about it. He gets his recommendation, goes next door, buys his medical marijuana, and gets in the taxi cab and heads back to Florida. So that's what we're facing. And when you look at, is it a doctor? Well, yeah. Is a good, responsible doctor going to do that? No, it's not. But we saw the same thing with oxycodone and those type of problems. We had a doctor over in Melbourne Beach that single-handedly prescribed more oxycodone in 1 year than every doctor collectively in the state of California. Right there. All right, that's what we're seeing. So, Alice, let me take her because I know she had a question earlier and I missed it.
I think part of the reason that it gets a pass for a lot of people is because they grew up in the 60s where pot was so prevalent, and they think that the laws and sending somebody to jail for marijuana is too strong. So is anything being done on the correction side, or on the legal side, or marijuana for possession, so it's not so strong?
Yeah, one of the things, her question was, is anything being done on the correction side, the rehabilitative side, so that the people being sent to prison aren't medical or aren't marijuana people and stuff like that? Because you're right, that is one of the things they keep hammering, is that our prisons are full of marijuana users. I will tell you, and if you ever want to do this for one of your meetings, I will bring our chain gang in here. We are the only sheriff's office in the state of Florida that has a chain gang. And I will bring them in here. In fact, we use them in our Time to Be a Parent Again class. I'll line them up right here, and I want you to ask every one of them, what's the first drug you ever tried? And they'll tell you marijuana. Every one of them. And then you can ask them, do you think we should legalize marijuana? And every one of them will tell you no. And I don't coach them. All right. In fact, I don't even know which 8 are going to be here until they get here. They will tell you the hazards of it. And we get hit all the time, to kind of follow up on your question. We get hit all the time with, well, the Sheriff's Association or the sheriff is against it because he's going to lose all of his funding to fight marijuana. I got to be honest with you, I'm still waiting on that check to come. All right. Not once have I gotten a check to help me fight marijuana. What we see is that it is the lid to Pandora's box. It is that drug, it's that gate drug that when they're trying it, it's introducing them to another crowd, it's introducing them to the other drugs, and we are seeing significant problems as a result of it. And it's going to continue if we don't. So Karen, then I'll come to you. Alice, either one. Go ahead.
We've all heard Potty Mouth Morgan with his act. He's sticking so much money into this. Is it because a lot of other attorneys are wanting the business? What comes out of it?
Yeah, her question was, we see John Morgan putting so much money into this and doing it. There's a lot of different theories out there about why John Morgan's so engaged. There's the theory that he's trying to drive Democrats to the polls to vote for Charlie Crist. That's one. There's the theory that, and again, I say it's a theory because I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but I've heard people say, well, he's got land already purchased out where he plans to grow medical marijuana. You hear that. You hear that he's gonna file all the lawsuits against medical marijuana. I got to tell him he can go ahead and get him an office here in Brevard County because he's going to be suing me a lot. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, but regardless of it, what we do know, I don't know his reasoning, his focus. What I do know is that they are spending a significant amount of money on a cause that we have seen happen in 2 other locations as a gateway to get to where they want to be. So that's what frightens me the most. Karen, then I'll come to you next.
It's like the liberals that are pushing this, but what I want to know, how are these people who are pushing this, the people who are going to want it, they're on Medicaid, how are they going to afford it?
Well, her question is, how are people going to afford it? All right, insurance isn't going to pay for it. Insurance doesn't cover it. All right. So they're looking at the prices that they're going to pay in these shops to get what's now legalized, if you will. The prices are higher. When they can't get it and they can't afford to buy it there, they're going to go buy it on the street and say, well, I've got a recommendation. Doesn't matter where I got it from, and how am I going to prove where they got it from, to be quite honest with you. So it's unintentionally breeding other crimes and cartels that we're actually seeing come back into effect. Let me go to the back and then I'll come right back to you.
Sheriff, I hate to say this, the city of Melbourne has now a synthetic marijuana shop. Mm-hmm. What are our takes on this?
I'm not up to speed on the synthetic stuff. I will tell you that anything that emulates a drug is bad. It's being put there because they're trying to introduce a younger generation to it. They're pushing in that category. So that would concern me, but I don't know enough about it and the dangers of it.
It's scary because the people will absolutely line up before the shop is even open to be able to go in and purchase this. And I too don't know about the synthetic basis.
Yeah, I don't either. I can tell you that when I look at this amendment, nothing has frightened me more in my 34, almost 35 years of being a law enforcement officer than this amendment does. And it's all of the lack of control measures that's in it. It's not the concept. It's the lack of control measures that's in it that frightens me the most. Let me come, then I'll come to you.
Yes, they're calling this medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine is not taxed. They're all there salivating about the tax money they're going to get on medical marijuana.
Mm.
So how do you tax it?
They're getting the sales tax. In Denver, for example, the sales tax is 7.72%. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's got a different caveat to it or what. I'm not sure. But I do know the tax on it. So somebody had a question, Terry?
There's so many people out there now that smoke. And so what do you think the increase is? Like, people are already out there driving, they're already out there doing everything they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, the potheads. So what do you think the increase is on people that now, because they're afraid to go and buy it, you know, illegally, what do you think the increase would be?
Terry's question is, what do I think the increase will be? Because there are a lot of people out there now that are smoking it and everything else. I think it's going to be across the board, just overwhelming. You're looking at a couple other things. Again, I'll call them unintended consequences. People that have a job that's a drug-free workplace that now can say, I have a recommendation for it. So they're going to try and defeat that aspect of it. You're seeing people that are scared to get arrested because of it, or have been arrested, and all the other things, that now this is going to be their ticket to be able to do it and to just go across the board with it. So I think you're going to see a phenomenal increase in the usage of it and in the public usage of it. Somebody was just telling me they were out in California and they went down to the water and was looking at the park, and there were just people just standing there smoking it left and right and everything. I don't want my kids in that. I don't know about you, but I sure don't. And, you know, I will tell you that when this first started, when we first started looking at the potential for this, I was at the Florida Sheriff's Association, and I'm very proud of our sheriffs, I will tell you this, because somebody got up and said, this is going to be a very controversial topic, and you could actually offend people by getting involved in this. So you as a sheriff have to decide if you're going to get involved in this. It didn't bother me a bit, because I'm going to tell you right now, the more controversial topic, the more controversial topic is the horrific damage that it will do, and none of us want to see that. So all I'm asking you is, don't take my word for it. Go read Amendment 2. When you see the few controls are in it, vote your heart. That's what I'm asking you to do. So thank you. I appreciate it.